What's up, headbangers? Welcome to another episode of the Talk Louder podcast, where we geek out on all things rock and roll. Hit that subscribe button on our YouTube channel. Leave us your likes and comments. You can also leave likes and comments on our Facebook page. Follow us on iTunes, Spotify, Instagram at talklouder_podcast. And of course, our website, talklouderpodcast.com, where you'll find links to our merch and our previous episodes. I'm Metal Dave, along with my co-host, Jason McMaster. And today we are joined by one of the founding fathers of the Big Four. David Ellefson from Megadeth fame is with us today on the Talk Louder podcast. He's best known for Megadeth, obviously, but man, he's in a million other projects, and we talk about all of those today. He just put out a new album with Jeff Scott Soto, who has been on our show, vocalist Jeff Scott Soto. That album is under the banner Ellefson-Soto. He's got a new band.
It came out yesterday, which would have been like the 8th or the 7th or something.
Yeah, it's October.
Just came out. It just came out. It's October 22. So yeah,
Vacation in the Underworld is what it's called. It's Ellefson-Soto.
Rat Pack Records.
Rat Pack Records, correct. And he's also got a band called Dieth with one of the guys from Entombed AD and another guy from Decapitated. Mm-hmm. And they're much more of a European death metal, dark metal type flavor, if you will. All good stuff. And he also talks a little bit about a project called the Lucid, which is an interesting mix of people. You've got Dave from Megadeth. You've got one of the guys from Fear Factory, a guy from Bang Tango, and a guy from Sponge. Odd mix.
Pretty weird.
Yeah, but one thing you'll learn about Ellefson is he's a very well-rounded guy. You know him as the bass player for Megadeth, but he's also got a very melodic ear. I know he's a big fan of Journey and AOR type rock records and bands.
He likes rock and roll, Yeah. I can appreciate someone who loves rock and roll. There's now that David Ellefson is playing, whatever alt metal with the Lucid, which features the singer from Sponge, which is, you got to hear that to really try to ingest. And then he's playing Polish death metal.
Yeah.
He's playing melodic hard rock that's not really metal, maybe power metal sometimes in Ellefson-Soto. He's everywhere. He's got Kings of Thrash is a tour that he's doing coming up real soon. I think they're doing about 5 shows across the U.S. Yeah, and that's doing some different. I think it's some different bands, but they're doing Megadeth, Killing Is My Business, and some other gems from Megadeth catalog, of course. Yeah, and he's got Jeff Young, right?
Yes.
Chris Poland.
Yes,
and then he's got a singer. Is it? Did he say Chuck Wright? Who's playing bass on it?
No, it's not Chuck Wright. The other 2 guys' names escape me, but the lead vocalist is actually in a Megadeth tribute band, so he kind of knows all the Mustaine quirks and nuances and that
and he mentioned his name, and I feel terrible that we can't call it at the moment. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It sounds really cool, actually. I'm excited for David to just be busy and just taking as much on as he can, and playing bass and writing songs, and it's just kind of what we do. It's just kind of what he's supposed to be doing right now, apparently. So I know all about being in a bunch of projects, and it's fun. It keeps you on your toes and keeps your axe sharp. So we just have a conversation, David. We just chill and drink coffee and talk about things.
Exactly what we're doing here.
Nice.
Actually, it's water in the cup, if the truth be told. But,
I've got coffee in.
I coffeed up earlier this morning. I'm still a little jet lagged getting home from Europe on Tuesday, so But I tell you what, man, I get a lot done. It's kind of like why we play music late at night, because like when the world shuts off and the emails and the phone and all the crap, it's that witching hour that we can just kind of zone in. And I find the same thing in the morning, maybe not so much musically once in a while, but I can get more business done. Like if I got to sit down and kind of grind through some stuff and focus, and you just don't have 20 things coming at you all the time. So we're getting ready to do the Kings of Thrash tour this week. So,
let's talk about that real quick, because you've got a few things that I want to get to. The Kings of Thrash, who all's involved in that, and what's the tour? What's the tour? Where's the tour headed?
Okay, so tours is we're going to do kind of, as the booking agents call it, the sort of proof of concept, kind of prop it up, take it around a few cities, see what people think about it, see what we think about it. Do we like it? Is it fun? Do we want to do more? All that stuff. So it's San Diego, Phoenix here, Las Vegas, and then playing at the Whiskey in Los Angeles. And it's funny because the Whiskey is kind of where it started, because that's where Jeff Young and I got on stage together for the first time since Castle Donington, August 21st, 1988. Where we played. That was our last show together.
Wow.
And then the Whiskey this year, 2022, Chuck Wright, bass player from Quiet Riot, and other things, has the Ultimate Jam Night that he started some years back. And early May, he did a tribute to the Big Four. And so Jeff, Big Four, Metallica, Megadeth, Slayer, Anthrax. So Jeff called me, he goes, dude, you want to come out and jam a couple tunes? I said, sure. As long as we play, obviously there'll be things that Jeff and I played on, and I want to play a couple deep cuts that haven't been played. So we played, kind of got to play Peace Sells. So that's obviously he didn't play on that on the record, but that In My Darkest Hour, which he did play on, and Mary Jane, which has not been played in years, and fans have been asking for it. So that's, essentially where it started. So the band is me and Jeff, our special guest, Chris Poland, coming out on this run, and drummer Fred Aching, who plays also in the Bullet Boys, and our singer Chaz Leon, who ironically sings in the killer Megadeth tribute band called Woke Up Dead, as well as a Soundgarden tribute band. So he's got pipes, and he gets kind of the Mustaineisms, that because he does it as a tribute thing. So it's cool because he'll do little things like in My Darkest Hour. I go, dude, that's pretty clever that you kind of pick up on those nuances, because it's
awesome.
If I was going to see a tribute band, I'd want to see all that stuff, So that's the band. That's what we're doing, and we'll see where it goes.
I think I read somewhere that the Kings of Thrash, you're doing Killing Is My Business and So Far So Good, So What in their entirety. Is that right?
Yes, you are exactly right. And so to that, so last year I did an appearance at the Chiller Theater in New Jersey, which is a big horror convention, like a horror con thing. And I've been wanting to do it for years, and I finally got in to do it. And because, at this point I was not in Megadeth for a few months, and they had just gone around and toured the area. So the fans were coming to me, bringing me Killing Is My Business records to sign in droves, because in 1985 we started the tour there. I think Hammerjacks in Baltimore, and then we played a bunch of the stuff up in the area before we came across and hit Detroit and Cleveland and Chicago. We kind of made our way across the country, and so that was with a band called Exciter out of Canada, also on Combat at the time, Combat Records.
I saw that show at the Back Room.
Yes, right. So we got to get to that, because that was where it kind of wiggled down to you. And but so what is interesting is, and I know because, I've always been the more kind of maybe publicly available member of the band. I play music because I'm a fan of it. The fact I've been able to make a living and pay some bills is beautiful too. But I do it because I'm a fan of it. I love it. It's fun. We play, we play music, So for me, I'd hear the fans talk and go, man, can you play some other songs? And love to hear Killing Is My Business. And I even brought it up today. I said, when we did the final remix, like kind of the final third remix, second remix of, so 3 releases of this record, The Final Kill. Excuse me. I think it was back in 2017 or so. I said, man, we should go out for one night only, go play Killing Is My Business at like the Metro in Chicago, which is one of the only clubs that's still open probably from that tour.
Yeah.
And, you know, I know management was excited. Kiko was, you know, we got kind of jacked up about it, and it just kind of fell on deaf ears. It never happened. So to me, I was like, you know, somebody, one of us, someday, somewhere, we got to go play this freaking record, you know? So here I was, you know, post Megadeth, and I'm like, you know what, fucking man, I'm going to go do it because it deserves its props. It's one of these records that I think probably for me and David, it was a record that we always kind of fell short because since it was so cantankerous with Combat Records back in those days, we didn't have a lot of money. It was very, very hard times for us. We were very broke. So it's not a favorite snapshot in the family photo album, if you will, of that time, right?
Kind of it's the weird uncle. You kind of, you have to invite that guy to Thanksgiving dinner, you know?
Yeah, right. You know what I mean? So it's like, fortunately, somehow I think the good Lord wired us that painful memories lessen and somehow the better ones get better with time, you know, like meeting you at the back room in Austin, you know, those kind of things. So, so that for me, I was just like, I got to do it. So I came home and I talked to the local promoter here, Danny Zelisko in Phoenix, and I brought it up, and he said, he goes, you know, I had a similar situation with the guys in Creedence Clearwater Revival. Fogerty had gone solo, but wasn't playing any CCR tunes. So the guys are at home going, the hell, like now we're basically kind of out of it. These are our songs too. So he came up with the name Creedence Clearwater Revisited, and they put that together, and they're out playing, you know, favorite songs. And it's
our producer was on tour with that band, teching and running front of house and shit.
Yeah, they did very well.
Yeah,
you know, because again, these are songs people want to hear, and I think at a certain point, look, there's a Megadeth. They're doing their thing, whatever, you know. We're not claiming to be Megadeth. We're not coming out trying to do any of that. You know, we don't have a Vic Rattlehead walking on stage or anything. You know, we're not a tribute band. We're not even a cover band, even though we're playing songs. Well, you know, again, there are songs, so it's not that. So, you know, the fact that I think there's three things. First of all, the songs that we, you know, the whole world can sing. Second of all, there's a really great musical integrity because of what Jeff contributed to So Far So Good So What obviously Chris Poland gave to Killing, and then the Pete Sells album. And then also, I just think it's kind of cool because there's an alumni brotherhood and friendship, you know, and it's funny to see Chris and Jeff because Chris was let go, Jeff brought in. So kind of by nature, you're like, fuck that guy, you know, the guy who takes your gig, right? Or gets your gig. But those two have become dear friends. They're both complete guitar nerds, gear freaks, you know what I mean? So they're like nerding out over this stuff. They're just, and it's fun to just watch everybody be excited about it. You know, Jeff's really thrilled to be back. Jeff and I have actually written 4 new songs. So I think after this, you know, that's where our focus will shift here, you know, for the, you know, coming months, maybe it's getting focused on those tunes because we've demoed them and, you know, now we're just get him recorded. And I can see Jeff, he's excited, you know, I think both Jeff and Chris after Megadeth, they just forgot how to play Megadeth songs and said, that's over. I'm done. Chris Poland after Megadeth, I mean, he got himself cleaned up. He jumped in the van and played bass for the Circle Jerks for a year, you know, which was funny because he said I got in a van with the punk rock band and made more money than I did being on Capitol Records with Megadeth, you know. So, so you know,
on a recent tour because Circle Jerks just came through Texas.
This was in 1987. This was way back then. Back in the day. So
you know, there might have been something in a fanzine that something's information rushing back. You know, when you're old like me, kind of shit happens. But
right.
I think that someone mentioned that in an old fanzine mid 80s around that time. So.
Yeah. You know, then he did his return to Metalopolis. So he kind of, you know, gave a hint to his metal Megadeth history. But, you know, Chris is, you know, very much a fusion musician. I mean, when you hear, you know, it's so funny with him. He picks up they're sitting there talking like this. And they go, wait, check out this new pedal I just got. You know, pick up his guitar. And effortlessly, like from the heavens, like Jeff Beck and Alan Holdsworth channels through this guy. And you're just like, where does that come from? I mean, it is a skill and you can just see music just channels through him. And that's what's so fun to watch him play. Even just me, all these years later, standing on the other side of the stage, just watching him play. I'm a fan of it, because it's not just your, typical heavy metal shredding. It's a nature of music that is really outside of, rock and metal. And for that to fit in, look, even with Megadeth, when he came in, that established the dichotomy between Dave being this kind of Ted Nugent, Jimmy Page, Michael Schenker guy. And then the second guitar player was always this very avant-garde, very very melodic, but this kind of smooth sound. And, so those are kind of the shoes Jeff had to fill in So Far So Good So What. And what I'm noticing now is I didn't realize how much guitar work Jeff did on So Far So Good So What. For years, I kind of thought, he played 4 solos and that was it. And he played on like 5 or 6 songs, solo work. He played all the acoustic guitar work, like on In My Darkest Hour, beginning of, I think maybe Into the Lungs of Hell, wherever there's any acoustic guitar work, I think he did all of that. So wow. I'm learning how much work he really did on that record. And because he was just there for an album and a tour, and then, Megadeth kind of completely revamped with the whole Rest in Peace lineup and everything, which kind of got all the, a lot of the glory. That was a bit of an unsung record in the sort of more mainstream MTV Headbanger Ball era, when our genre really hit its stride in the 90s. So I think for this tour, that's why we're doing it. It's like, let's go back and pull out these classics that fans are asking for. That's why we're playing little 500 seat clubs. We're not trying to go out to the Enormo Dome and, do that deal.
This group of folks that you have, are you guys going to write and record and make a record, or?
Well, yeah. So these 4 songs that Jeff and I wrote earlier this year, and we demoed them up. Actually, Jeff was just in the studio last week with Fred on drums, cutting drum tracks to him, because we've got, we've got to get drums, and then kind of re-record some stuff to make it a proper master. But yeah, so we have it there. And plus now with Chaz writing lyrics and singing, it's cool to see, to just, not only go on stage and honor the past and, do the legacy part of it, but to have a creative nucleus, because how hard that can be. You can be with, and it was always like that in Megadeth, because everything kind of came together around what was already established, which is, the name, the sound, the band, mostly Dave songs with contributions from the rest of us. So all the musicians came in to be sort of bit players to that sort of protagonist, if you will. Right. And it's still like that. So whenever any of us ever would, I don't know, hey, you want to play on the side or do something or write or do, it never really worked, because that wasn't why we were brought together. Our chemistry was,
that makes
right? Does it make sense?
Yeah.
That
makes total sense.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's why it's interesting.
At fault of no one.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
That's the deal. So it's like a plumber, an electrician, and a concrete guy are all great when there's a contractor who says, come in and build my house. But on their own, they don't just build a house. You know what I mean? It's to use a layman's term, if you will.
No, that was very good.
Yeah.
I know you're advertising that you're playing Killing and So Far in their entirety, but is it safe to say you're going to sprinkle in some Peace Sells tunes as well, or?
I didn't say it, but yeah, I mean, the funny thing is I have this list of the songs that I know people want to hear, 99 Ways to Die, Train of Consequence, there's just a bunch of them, and some of them, fell on, like I always, when I was in the band, I always wanted to play Angry Again. It's such a great song. And I remember, it got some resistance because it was on an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, a Sony soundtrack. What does it matter? And one day management says, well, because of Spotify and the digital, like it's one of the top songs that people really like. It's got a nice when you're playing big rooms, it's got just a good mainstream kind of pogo groove to it, Yeah. So 99 Ways to Die.
I feel that way about 99 as well.
Totally. 99, Go to Hell. There's some of these songs, they fell in these really cool soundtracks, but it was a moment, and, those movies are long gone now for the most part. So, but, those songs live on. So sometimes, I'll play them even on a solo show. I'll go to hell or something because it starts, with the bass intro, and people are like, whoa, that's awesome, So, it's kind of like how I also use the analogy a little bit like, Roger Waters is out doing kind of what his interpretation of Pink Floyd is, and there is no Pink Floyd now, really, for the most part. They're retired, I think. So you've got an ambassador out there doing that. So that's our whole thing. This is about friendship. It's about just community. And, I think filling a little gap, for some fans that are excited to come out and see this. I mean, so it's we kindly waited until the Megadeth 5-Finger Death Punch tour went through before we, came out and did this. Cause obviously we want people to go see Megadeth, right? They have a new record, go see that, support that. That's the big thing. And, that's okay. That's done now. All right, got another paycheck. Come over and check this out. Come over and hear some other songs. Yeah, so it's not meant to be combative or retaliatory in any way. It's just purely a celebration.
No, I wouldn't have even thought that.
Yeah, I mean, but it's an interesting point.
I feel like, it is because I don't know anyone like that. It's like, create a place for what it is you're doing. Not, why would you want to play even in the same week?
Right, exactly. Yeah, because we were thinking about announcing in August, and then when we got word of the tour, it's like, okay, we definitely want to be behind it, because you don't want to be underfoot, you don't want to be causing problems. We're not here to cause problems, And again, and the good news is because of BMI and ASCAP, when you play people's songs while they're sleeping, they're getting paid. You know what I mean? That's the beauty of, so if someone's out playing a Watchtower, a Dangerous Toys song right now, like you're making money, So,
well, and the songs, they don't play or sing themselves either. So
they don't.
Right.
So you got to go out there and do it.
I want to play show and tell for just a second since we have Dave with us today. I bought this in 1985. And I still have it. I bought it probably the week it came out. And I made the unfortunate mistake of leaving it on the dashboard of my car.
Oops.
And so, as you can tell, it's warped beyond belief. And at some point, somebody used it as a Frisbee and took a chunk out of it there. You could see that.
Or they were really hungry and had something to eat.
Or that. Could have been that. But I've held on to it for all these years because I just refused to part with it. And so obviously it doesn't play. But I kept it as a keepsake because it is such a great album. And I'm really glad to hear that you're giving it some overdue love and you're going out on tour and playing these songs. And I also am a big fan of the album cover. I know the band was not necessarily
right.
I always thought that was a great cover, but anyway, because we had you on the show today, I want
couple of points. To be young and dumb, or
leave your vinyl on the dashboard.
I mean, we didn't like keep all this bullshit behind me and Dave we didn't keep all this shit for. I mean, obviously, heavy metals are somewhat hoarders because this fucking demo from 1982, I can't get rid of this.
Right,
but it's all on YouTube, dude. You just dial it up on your phone whenever you want. But this is the original. That whole mentality of
even with that record, I can tell as soon as you held it up, I knew that was an original copy. You can see it. I can tell like sort of second pressings and third pressings that they did along the years.
Well, it's got the lyric sheet inside and everything.
Totally.
I mean, so there's the
and here's another thing I'll say about vinyl, okay? Because we're older gentlemen. Remember when CDs came along and you could leave your CD on the dash of your car and it wouldn't melt? I mean, these are the reasons digital did have its upside, because cassettes are the same thing. I mean, maybe not growing up in Minnesota so much, wasn't that hot, but LA, whatever. Certainly out here in Phoenix where I live. Oh my God.
Oh, hey, by the way, before we forget, happy David Ellefson Day.
Yeah. Hey, thank you. I appreciate it.
So I don't, not to interrupt your story, because I do want you to go back to that, but how the heck does David Ellefson Day happen? Now this is
stranger things have happened, Dave.
Well, this is great. So you're originally from Jackson, Minnesota, correct?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So, and the mayor has proclaimed today, or
yes. It's October 9th. Yeah, it's October 9th.
So how does that phone call happen? Tell me how that's come about.
I had a good little team around me. We were doing a lot of stuff. We brought the Ellefson Coffee Company back to Jackson. There's a store on Main Street. that was kind of a staple. It was kind of the cool new hip coffee store. And the woman was struggling a bit. So I put some money into it. We laid the Ellefson coffee brand over it, hung a bunch of guitars, kind of a hard rock meets coffee shop, meets Starbucks,
Yeah.
And that was a big deal. We did a big grand opening. It was super cool. As a result, the Iowa Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, which is just over the border, minutes over the border from Jackson, in Spirit Lake, Iowa, Lake Okoboji, they have the Iowa Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And so they inducted me in that. So all these really cool things were happening. And at the David Ellefson Youth Music Foundation, we donated some instruments and stuff back to my high school where I went. And we had the support of, at the time, the Grammys Megadeth had won our Grammy, which helped, but they had the Grammy Music Education Coalition at the time, and they really supported our foundation. So there's just all this great love and synergy. And so the mayor was kind enough to proclamate that day, and which is beautiful and just a wonderful thing. And it's funny, you guys will appreciate this. When I look, somehow it came up October 9th. In my book, that's the day Kiss was given the key to the city, I think, of Pontiac, Michigan in 1974, 1975. So I was like, dude, awesome. On the same day that Kiss had a cool event,
That is cool.
Yeah,
right.
That's a good.
So I guess October 9th is the rock and roll day of the year, right?
That's good. Now this is related, unrelated. I'm asking my co-host Metal Dave, Too Many Dave things. Isn't there a Lemmy Day in Austin? Or National Day of Motorhead, or maybe
it
school
was
me on that.
One or the other. It took place during South by Southwest one year, and David Sedal was
not. It's not annual.
I don't think it's annual. I think they did a one-off thing, but yeah, they had a Lemmy. I don't know if it was Lemmy or the official Motorhead Day.
God bless David Sedal, but didn't he have to go up to the city? And,
he fought tooth and nail to make that happen. So kudos to him. But yes, he got it done. And which this all leads me to ask, Jason, when are they going to have Jason McMaster Day in Corpus Christi? Has the mayor called you yet?
Totally.
No. They don't even know who I am. May or may not be.
We need to put a statue of you next to Selena, because they got that
it's my
statue.
Hometown. Yeah, it's my
right.
Hometown.
That's what I'm saying. You need to have your own bronze statue next to her.
They're doing okay. They gave me a star. There's a Texas Music Walk of Fame, and there's a star down there. I'm nice. Next to Bill Haley and people like that.
That's huge.
Yeah,
great.
Well,
yeah.
I was born down there when there was only one hospital, so.
And you put them at capacity, so they had to build them another one now.
I don't know about that, but I'll take it.
Dave, is that bass in the background? Is that the one that used to have the Dead Kennedy sticker on it? Is that the life?
It's funny. So there's two. One is the one on that side is it's a USA custom shop. This one here is, this is the it's a reissue. It's one of my current signature models, and it's a reissue of the very first bass I bought from Grover when I went out to. Me and Dave went out there in 1987. Story. So go to see Judas Priest on the Turbo Lover tour or Turbo tour, right, in Los Angeles Sports Arena downtown. Me, Dave, Chris Bullitt, we go. Dokken is opening. Mm-hmm. Jeff Pilson is playing either a Jackson or Charbel. Has the best bass tone. I'm like, holy hell, this guy sounds good. And of course, I love Ian's playing. I love Ian's tone. So next day or so, I go to the Sunset Strip Guitar Center, the big one there, and I'm looking for a Jackson. I see one on the wall. I pull it down. I plug it into a Gallion Kruger 800 RB head and into a stack of Harkeys. I think maybe a 410 and a single 15. Those at that time were pretty cutting edge because they were aluminum cone speakers. I plug in, start playing. A tone is born. I mean, it was just one of those magical moments. And so Dave and I drive out to, I believe, Milliken Avenue, way out past East LA, to the Grover. That's when Grover Jackson still owned Jackson. And I had him, Dave took a King Bee, which was Robin Crosby from Rat, right? So
Those are cool.
They call him the King. Yeah. So Dave turned his into a 24 fret that became a go-to for him for years. And then I had, this basically a version of this. Now it's interesting because Mike Shannon, who is one of the custom luthiers there and now has a custom shop here in Scottsdale because Fender, who owns Jackson, is based here literally 10 minutes up the road from me in Scottsdale. But he had the specs, and we were even looking at old pictures from the Peace Cells tour because that was the first time I played this bass. I took it out on the kind of the last half of the Peace Cells tour. And we were looking to make sure the knobs were right. We've upgraded the bridge, I guess, a little bit. We put EMGs in it instead of a Jackson pickup, because I think at the time Jackson, now they have some pickups, but they really didn't have a pickup line at that time. But other than that, I mean, neck through the whole thing. So it has a place for a Dead Kennedy sticker if you do have one. We could, because it had the "fuck the PMRC," Dead Kennedys, and like a skull, something. It was just
what I love is that's what Metal Dave here, that's what he was excited about. Oh wait, that's the bass that used to have the Dead Kennedy sticker on it.
Because I remember seeing photos of Dave in all the old music magazines, and I thought it was rad that he had this Dead Kennedy sticker, because this was back when the punks and the metalheads were just starting to become friendly with each other, and you'd see a Dead Kennedy sticker on the bass player from Megadeth's bass. It really made an impact on me. It stood out. But I thought this was interesting what you just said, because I was going to say also that maybe it's just me, but I don't see a lot of bass players playing the Jackson basses. And so you're saying that we owe this to Jeff Pilson.
Totally. Oh, Jeff gets all the credit, man. And I told him that story too. He just laughed. And but it's dude, Jeff is a great bass player. He's an amazing songwriter and singer, right? I mean, dude, the Rockstar movie, right? It's killer. He's a great player, cool guy. So isn't that funny that and that's funny, out of all those bands, I love Dokken. I love Dokken, I love Rat, Motley, of course, but Dokken, there was something kind of special about them, and then Jeff was a big part of that sound vocally and everything. So so for me, when I came back to Megadeth in 2010, right away, my friend Brian McDonald, who was doing artist relations there, big Megadeth fan, and he literally 5 minutes after the press release went out, he texted me. He goes, "Now can we finally make that Jackson bass for you?" Because he'd been talking to me about doing it for years, and I said, "Yeah, let's do it." So he brought me back into the fold. Nick Bocott from Grim Reaper, See You in Hell, My Friend, fame, was also working artist relations at the time for Jackson. And he's the one who said, he goes, in his British accent, he goes, "Jackson needs a face, an ambassador, and David Ellefson is that face," So that really kind of set the marching orders of it. And, the last 10, 11 years now, we've developed, at one point, I think I had something like 12 SKUs of basses, and I still have them all, between that one, I did a 30th anniversary. I don't have it here. I shipped it off already to California for the tour, but the 5-string, it was the first 5-string that I developed with Jackson. So I could play the song Hangar 18 on the Peace Cells tour, on the Rest of Peace tour.
Wow.
So that's now in production. They're kind of brother and brother, those two. But there's we've developed a ton of basses. We've sold a bunch of basses. I like to think we've had one of the better, more successful signature bass lines of not just a bass, but like a family of instruments for rock. We even did like kind of a more traditional kind of Fender P bass style, kind of a hybrid that like I think at NAMM a couple of years ago when we rolled it out, won like best new bass of NAMM show and stuff. Yeah. So I mean, it's been a fun journey.
Congrats.
Yeah, I've never had the chance to actually tell you to your face this little bit. Your tone is amazing, but your playing is also amazing.
Thank you.
Also have this. I play bass with a pick. You play bass with a pick. Jason Newsted is another one of my sort of guys that I love his fucking bass playing. And it's not just because, we all play with a pick. You know, Chris Squire, Paul McCartney, Gene Simmons, Lemmy. You go on, there's all these bad, Geezer Butler can do both. You know, it's important for people to realize that this isn't always what the bass means.
No, not at all.
Tonally, aesthetically, even air bass. No one plays air bass. I play air bass. You know, it's important to see the perspective of a nerdy fan. Like,
it is.
Shit, all of us, all three of us in here. But there's something about your playing that I've always appreciated, and it's not, I wouldn't say lead bass, but you're writing some riffs. Jason Newsted is writing some fucking riffs, and it's important to know that that's not always the bass player's job, is to write a riff. It's usually the bass player's job to stab cymbal chokes, and once the song gets engaged, you're playing roots and maybe playing threes and fives with it. That's a bass player,
right?
So when when you think about that process, once again, I'm leading right back to the same place. Your bass playing is appreciated.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Because
I've never been able to tell you that. It's not a kiss ass, because obviously I'm throwing about 5 or 6 other people in there to literally let our listeners understand that it's coming from somewhere, and I know you're a fan of all of those players as well.
100%. In fact, I remember when we used to come out here on the Killing Is My Business, and then I guess maybe the first time on the Peace Elves tour, we played twice at a little club here called the Mason Jar, which was like the place. It was kind of like the back room in Austin, right? It was that was that place. And
might have even, if this is possible, it may have even been dirtier than the back room.
Yeah, for sure it was. Yeah, for sure it was. And I remember, Flotsam would open for us. Jason was, and that's when I could tell he was a real leader. Like Jason. That's why I knew when he joined Metallica. Now he's not the boss. He's kind of the new guy, and I think he got hazed a lot. And, they've talked about it a lot now, about just that sort of initiation into the big boy club. But, fundamentally, Jason is a, great player, writer. And, that's why I can understand his need to have some other creative outlets at a certain point. And that's a tough thing, because when you're in U2, AC/DC, Metallica, the biggest bands in the land, right? I mean, really the biggest. It's hard. Jason, I remember Jason had a great quote. He said, "We're like a fist, and a fist packs a bigger punch with 4 fingers than if it's 1 finger." I won't do that one on its own, right? So, and I thought that was a great analogy, because, 4 individuals coming together, it packs a freaking punch. And yet, after you're in a band, and I went through it, being in Megadeth for decades, and, and every band has there's a role. I was talking to Charlie Benante from Anthrax about this one time, because he goes, when bands have roles, and the members have to play that role. And if they can't, they might have to be removed and get someone else in who can play that role. And yet at the same time, some groups are very collaborative. Usually, as it's 1 or 2 people that kind of do most of the collaborating and writing, and the others are bit participants, if at all. It's why, you see Judas Priest on your shirt there. Ian seems to be comfortable as a guy not writing. And as I've read KK's book and getting to know him, and Glenn Tipton has even talked about it in interviews, it was always an open door for him to write, apparently, but he just didn't write or didn't bring anything to it. Or maybe he doesn't write that kind of music. Maybe he's a jazz musician. Who knows, So, but yet, what you got to have the Judas Priest sound. So whoever's writing that, as we know from the years, it was usually Glenn, KK, and Rob. Those 3 got most of the credits on the records. And so, that's the sound, and whoever writes that, that's who needs to be bringing that. And, Ron Lafitte, obviously, who managed us back in the 90s. And I remember we were talking about
as well as Armored Saint.
As well as Armored Saint. Yep. Mm-hmm. And he, Ron was those were really our big upswing years, Rest in Peace, Countdown, Euthanasia. And Ron is a real student of the music industry. He's born and raised in LA, so he loves the Lakers. The coach, Pat Riley, was his hero. He'd read his books, he'd study strategy from him. And he used a lot of Pat Riley's methodology in managing Megadeth. And, he loved with the Rust in Peace lineup that now we were a new nucleus, a lot of creativity that could happen, between us. And it developed over a few records, of course, in the 90s. There were always these, the publishing conversations were never fun or easy in that band, you know what I mean? Because of just, kind of the lay of the land. And it was good at times. And I think our bigger successes with that lineup for sure were the more, collaborative things, because we know with rock groups, it isn't just the song, it's the culture. It's like, I want to see those guys, I want to see those 4 Cheap Trick guys, those 5 Judas Priest guys, those 4 Megadeth guys. And it's important that they, because you kind of get your own fans too within that, right? And they want to see you be part of it. They want to hear you be part of it. I didn't know Ace Frehley didn't play at some of those solos on Destroyer or whatever records it was, side 4 of Kiss Alive 2. Yeah. Apparently, Bob Kulick, Bruce's brother, played on a lot of that stuff.
Rick Derringer and
Rick Derringer, yeah.
Rick Wagner.
And I think those were maybe for other reasons, and who knows, as bands grow, all kinds of things happen. But, for the most part, we never had that in our group, but it's people want to hear that and feel that. So I think there's always an open door for, I remember even at one point, I think we had something like, hey, we're going to take one song and just split it 4 ways between everybody, because who knows who's on the creative pulse at that particular time. And of course, in Megadeth, the pressure was on Dave. He was the Tom Brady. He was, he had to write, the bulk of it. And it was his sort of voice that needed to be heard in those songs. Even if I wrote something, I knew when I brought it to the door, it was going to now go through that machine, go through Dave's hands and fingers, the influence of the other members. So it sounded like Megadeth,
Had to fit his voice, yeah.
100%. And that was one of the things writing lyrics, with him, for him, is writing stuff that I knew he could stand up on stage and sing. He could sing it comfortably, confidently. It was believable, you know what I mean? And I think that got harder over the years. Maybe earlier on, it was a little easier, because we were sort of developing. I go back to like Foreclosure of a Dream and Breakpoint and some stuff we wrote during like the Countdown era, when we were that very collaborative record. And we wrote a lot of that while we were on the Clash of the Titans tour in 1991. We knew we had to get home and cut the next record. And that Lafitte said, he goes, this one really needs to step up. I mean, we got to really knock it out of the park. The Metallica Black Album was out. Queensryche Empire was huge on MTV. Little did we know Nirvana in Seattle was hot on our tails, and they'd be the next thing. So, Ron his instincts were correct. And, I remember one day, we were talking about the writing and stuff, and he just said, he goes, for the most part, Dave is bringing in the highest quality material faster than everybody else, which is why we default and defer to that material. And the stuff he's writing was great, of course, Sweating Bullets, Symphony of Destruction. So, you lead with your strength.
Can't shake a stick at those 2 songs right there.
Right. And those were just very intuitive and kind of, I just watched them just sort of fall out. We'd rehearse, we'd take a break, we'd go outside, we'd shoot basketball, we'd shoot hoops, we'd come back in, pour a coffee, Dave would pick up his guitar, start chugging a riff. And at the same time, those were days that were, like I remember when Symphony started, it was just.
Yeah.
Right. That's what it was. And then Nick comes into the So I start kind of playing Dave's part, right? And then I go, well, what would Ian Hill do? He'd ride.
Yeah.
Right. He'd ride.
Yeah.
Right. And then now you got a bass line, right? Because there's a guitar riff, the drum part. So, in a lot of ways, and this, you've been in enough bands, who wrote the song? Well, certainly Dave came up with the riff and those transitions and stuff. But even like the chorus where, it's a descending chorus. Right. So I kind of copped what I felt Jason Newsted would do, if I can be honest about it.
Oh.
Kind of from Enter Sandman. He would probably walk up from the bottom. So So as the guitar is going down, I'm coming up. We meet in the middle. Right? We pick up that little tag of the riff, and then we start all over. Meet in the middle, right? And so, so those are the days, and it's hard because I think truthfully, those were more group collaborations, than probably we're credited for, but it is what it is. And at some point, is this the hill you want to die on, fighting over this? We're ready to go make the biggest record of our lives. And at some point, I think people fold their hand and, all right, well, fuck it, this is what it is. But that's not to take anything away from anybody who did that. I mean, obviously Dave was quarterbacking that stuff. He used his melodies, his thought, and the lyrics and stuff. So, that's a big part of bands, as too, is it isn't just the word, the note, it's about how it all comes together. Look, you're a lead singer, Jason, so when you're fronting the band, you essentially are the spokesperson for everyone behind you. As great as your drummer is, as killer as your lead guitar player is, when the singer starts singing, kind of all eyes go there, so.
Well, you were there, and you were soaking up what was in the room, and you were contributing as it filtered through your Ellefson brain. So,
totally.
Yeah. And thanks. Hey, let's move to I
want to ask something real quick on the subject, and then we'll move on to some new stuff. I wanted David to clarify something for me, and you're probably sick of this question, but the bass line, the intro to Peace Sells, one of maybe the most iconic bass intro in all of heavy metal history. I've heard mixed reports that either that you came up with it or Mustaine came up with it, and I was just wondering if you could set the record straight for us.
Sure. No, Dave came up with it. It's funny. We were crashing essentially at our producer from the Killing record, Carrot Fay, up in his house up in Laurel Canyon, and apparently he didn't pay the electric bill, so the electricity was turned off. So I think he put an extension cord to sponge electricity off the neighbors. So we're living with candles, right? Wow. And it was dark days, no pun intended. And I had this BC Rich Eagle bass that I had ripped the frets out of, and it became fretless. And Dave was just sitting there noodling, playing one day before we're going to go to rehearsal. And, he's kind of coming up with that line. And he says, "Hey, Junior, come here, play this," and working it out. And we go to rehearsal. We get in the room because me and Dave it was always in my van. I drove, he rode shotgun, drove up to Pasadena to pick up Gar, went down to just past downtown LA, actually a town called Vernon, down past kind of like the meatpacking district, right? Old brewery there. I think it was probably like the Francisco, which kind of became a brand. I think the Francisco rehearsal facilities. They'd find these old breweries and they'd sort of gut them and turn them into, soundproof them.
I think I've been there. That place is crazy.
Right? Yeah. So I figured you would know. So we go in and we start playing the song. And, again, kind of like symphony, it was, Dave had the pieces, we put it together. We worked on the arrangement together. And literally in 2 hours, that song was done. And it's just one of those. In fact, at the end, I remember we were playing. I don't know if it was that night or if it was a couple of nights later, where we got the chorus, "Peace Sells, but it was fine." And me, of course, being a Van Halen fan, whenever I sing backups, I immediately go to that Michael Anthony high, third, fourth, or fifth. "Peace sells, but who's buying?" So add that little harmony thing on there, and all of a sudden it's like, whoa, Junior can sing, and wow, it's really melodic, and it's like that's like a real chorus now, and it builds. And so so we knew as we then went out, and Andy Summers, I'm sure, booking agent, who was our agent at the time, he sent us out on a little 3-week trip, January, February, early '86, and we played every song we had, all of Killing, all of the potential new songs for Peace Sells, and essentially that became our pre-production for the Peace Cells album. We came home, Combat Records came to us and said, all right, we gave you $8,000 for the first record. You did well. You sold some records. We'll give you $24,000 for the next record. So we were sitting at Cantor's on, the Cantor's Deli down there on Fairfax in Hollywood, having the meeting with the label, eating pastrami sandwiches, and just going, wow, $24,000, that's huge. And, then, so we made the record for Combat, then Capitol came in and bought out the contract and actually released it. So
he wrote the riff, but you performed it on the album. Is that right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. So and I always kind of just thought of it as a guitar part. Like, hey, here's a guitar part. Hey, quick, play this on bass. That would happen a lot. Sometimes he'd come up with a part on guitar. He'd say, hey, Junior, come here, play this part. And I would play it. And in the same way, I've come up with parts on various piano and stuff, and you move it over to like Family Tree on Euthanasia. I wrote on my piano that that whole thing, and then you move it over to guitar. It's like, it's a cool guitar riff. So that little moment became either a good bass riff or a good guitar riff. I'm not sure, but the fact that it got used. In fact, so we Peace Cells. We finally get a little money from Capitol. We get an apartment in Silver Lake, just east of Hollywood, and me, Dave, and Chris Poland lived there. And I remember because we had a Bowflex. Remember their Solo Flex? Remember those things? It was like a rubber band workout. So it's sitting there by the kitchen, kind of this big open room. We always had MTV on in the background on the TV. Chris is next to me doing the dishes, right? And it's an afternoon, and all of a sudden they say MTV News. You heard it here, or you heard it first, right? Yeah. And Chris stops and goes, dude, was that our song? And I was like, I don't know. I didn't hear it, And that was the first time that we were aware. Yeah. And the funny thing is people like yourself, oh my God, that song is huge and that riff and oh my God. But the reality of it is I missed the whole thing because we were on tour most of the time. So I wasn't even aware of it. So people tell me that all the time, like how it's just constant. I was just like, well,
it was constant.
Well, the two riffs that people like us, older gents of a certain age, when you think like those little snippets like that, those sound bites of MTV, the transitions between ads into one of their shows or whatever.
Yeah.
It's the SOD, or it's fucking Peace Cells, and it's like great company.
Yeah,
for sure.
Hey, let's talk about Ellefson-Soto. Sorry, we'll move forward, move to newer times. Look at that! Boom!
I have a new copy right here. I literally just got it from Rat Pack. So
you had it ready. You had it ready.
You mean this one? No.
Ellefson-Soto album. It's what's the title? Vacation in the Underworld or something?
Vacation in the Underworld. Yeah.
Yes.
Nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dave, you got it right.
I didn't even have time to get my notes. We went right from John Bush to David Ellefson. So tell us about the Ellefson-Soto album and how you and Jeff came to work together.
So obviously known Jeff for years, probably like maybe you guys. My first exposure to him was when he was in Rising Force with Yngwie, just killer, right? So I know he sings in Trans-Siberian Orchestra with my buddy Al Petrelli. So I go out and see them every year and they come through. So that's how we became friends. And there's a song that I had called Writing on the Wall that I'd written on bass. And again, one of these kind of like a Peace Cells, it sort of wrote itself in an hour, the lyrics, another hour. And I could never find a home for it. In fact, they even brought it in when me and Frank Bello were doing Altitudes and Attitude. And he said, sounds good. Why don't you sing it? And I'm like, that's the problem. I'm not the voice for it. I just knew I demoed the voice and it was fine, but I could tell to put it out commercially, it needed a different kind of tone about it. Right. So Andy Martingelli, who's the guitar player in the Ellefson solo band, basically my solo band is based in Verona, Italy. Right. Andy, my drummer, Paolo, and our other guitar player, Valerio. So Andy, I mean, really this record should say Ellefson-Soto Martingelli because Andy, he's very much the sort of the feisty power. He's all the guitar work. The three of us were the writers on the record. And he just said, he goes, dude, call Jeff. Just call Jeff Scott Soto and have him sing on that. So I sent it over to him and within an hour, he bounced the track back, and I was like, whoa. I said, that's fucking perfect with harmonies, all the nuances. And I was like, yeah, this guy's a professional singer, you know, and everybody's got home studios, as we know. So I just said, hey, man, me and Andy are writing some more stuff. Can I send you another one? And I did. And how about another one? And I mean, that's literally how this album happened. Just kind of, and we were excited. We kept, you know, it's just, and then one of the things Jeff said, he'd send something back, and I could tell he was going, well, you know, I think it's pretty good. We're like, dude, it's freaking killer, man. And he's like, wow, like, this is easy. You guys like everything I do. And it's like, well, look, we're sending it to you because you're Jeff Scott Soto. Like we, you know, whatever you do, we're going to like pretty much because we love your voice. We just like how your approach is. I mean, if something's glaringly off, obviously we'd say so, but nothing was. And again, it's one of those meeting of the minds of a band, of a creative moment where you're just like, wow, this just fell out of the sky. And next thing you know, we had, I think 15 songs.
That's we just had him on the show, and that's pretty much, in his words, of course, the exact story about how it just kind of like happened. You know, one became 15 in just a matter of, well, we can't ignore this, so we got to put it out.
Yep, exactly. And we did a cover of Swords and Tequila, kind of while we were doing it. And I said, I'm going to push this out. And Jeff even said, he goes, yeah, do it, man. It's kind of tips the hand a little bit that we're up to something. Eddie Trunk, of course, loved it. He likes that. So he gave it a nice voice for us out into the, you know, the world. And behind the scenes, we're finishing the album up. And then I called Joe at Rat Pack, who owns Rat Pack Records. And he and I have been buddies, and we've been threatening to do something together over the years. And finally, this moment happened. I sent him the record, and he hit me right back. And he goes, dude, this is really good. And I mean, he goes, how much money you want? And, you know, knowing what it is. And I mean, literally, I was driving down Shea Boulevard here, and we worked the deal out in probably 2 stoplights. You know, the deal was done, and it was like, great, let's put an album out. So good.
Well, that's the good thing about being old school, and him knowing what you kind of need, and you kind of knowing what he needed. That's the good part about being the elder statesman here that we are now. You can kind of, it's not about working on this huge monumental record deal because, you know, you're going to be on this label for a 7 album. It's not, no, it's like, hey man, let's do this. Cool. It'll be fun. We'll do some shows, blah, 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 till the next episode. And that's kind of where we all are, isn't it? It just seems to be
exactly what
you've always got something going on. And I think that it's really cool. I enjoyed working with you on the Ellefson stuff. That came together. I mean, we were kind of stuck in this the pandemic and the lockdown, and I think a lot of people know the story about, well, we can't tour, we can't do this, and we can't do that, but God damn it, we can record some shit right now, and we can put it out, and that was fun too.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. And you're right, because when the world shut down because of COVID by March 2020,
yes,
it hit our industry probably the hardest. And everybody was suddenly home, unemployed. And if you were a musician in a band, you didn't have an income. If you were the owner of a band, you went, oh shit, I've got salaries, band crew, gear, contracts. Like, when is this ever? You know, and that was such a scary moment. It was almost like 9/11 or one of these moments when the world just stops and you don't really even you're trying to comprehend what has just happened, and you don't even know if there's a future. You go, is this the end of the world? Is this the plague? Is this the end of humanity? Like the dinosaurs? Like, what are we doing? And you're right. By June, when we said, you know, let's do some covers. And I mean, literally, again, you know, within a phone call, like half of that record was kind of already conceived, and we started calling people up, and obviously reached out to you, and because of home studios, everybody could do it. And I had Charlie Bedante on some stuff. Al Jorgensen, I was, you know, got him to contribute, and he's become a dear friend. Then I ended up writing and playing on his latest Ministry record, which is cool. So
yeah, you had some of my buddies on there. You had Dave McClain. You had. He's not my buddy. I feel like I want to be as Dave Lombardo.
Yes.
You know, we made some videos, and you know, Tom Hazer was a great contributor, and you know, we know that you know, Ellefson's not on the table right now, but you're busy enough as it is. You're busy as fuck. Let's talk about your shirt, Dieth.
Yeah.
You got this other thing. And I don't want to forget the Lucid as well with my buddy Mike
Definitely
Heller.
talk about that.
Yeah. Tell us about, you go. So I'm going to put another battery in you and spin you around. Here you go.
Maybe like you, I have a pile of black shirts, and I said, what shirt should I wear for the podcast? They said, whatever the next black shirt that cycles to the top. It happened to be this one. So probably because I just came home and emptied my suitcase from Europe. So here it is. But shameless plug for
love it.
Yeah. So I was introduced to these guys through Opus, who plays drums in Dead by Wednesday. Hits me, I guess, earlier this year, maybe January. Said, hey, meet Guilherme. He was in Entombed AD. His singer Lars just died from cancer. Kind of what is he? Kind of wrote a new song, thinking about rebooting. Drummer Mihal,
I'm sorry to interrupt. These guys are in Poland.
Yeah.
Okay.
Guilherme actually he's from Brazil, lives in Lisbon, Portugal, but also does a lot of work over in Poland, right?
Okay.
So Gdańsk, Poland. Mihal, the drummer who was in Decapitated, he's from Gdańsk as well, which is a town up in northern Poland. In fact, the Germans call Gdańsk Danzig. Like that's I guess the German word for the town. So bitchin' little town. Like cool. I've been to some of the cities, of course, in Poland. Not that one. It is super hip. Very, very cool. I mean, it's like on the water, then the little taxis come over from Sweden. I mean, that's how close it is to that whole little area up there. So a little cold, not gonna lie. It was a little chilly up there. But so they sent me the track. I said, sure. Plugged in, played bass to it. Very clever, very charismatic. Guilherme, the writer, the singer, guitar player. And, you would get this, when you play with guys like I had, obviously at Megadeth for many years, there's a certain, me and Dave can almost finish each other's sentences of like where a riff or a thing's going to go, right? Now you play with some new guys, new sound, new fingerings, new tunings. It's a new world, right? And I did that with F5 even, back in the 2000s. It's like these guys were younger than me. They were doing the drop C sharp, drop D tuning thing. And so all of a sudden I was like, man, I've been old school. I've been in A440, Iron Maiden tuning my whole career. Now getting hip to like how younger people are hearing and creating music, often inspired by the likes of Megadeth and Dangerous Toys and Watchtower, and Metallica. You're taking that inspiration and doing something new with it. So I've been through this process before, and it's good to squeeze your brain into a different place. And so that was where this started. I went to Europe in April, and I called Guilherme when I got there, and I said, hey, man, we're talking about doing a video for this song in the Hall of the Hanging Serpent and Serpents. And I said, we're kind of post-COVID. We're done doing these bedroom playthrough videos and the Foursquare iPhone Zoom thing, right? So I said, why don't I just fly over there, to Gdańsk and let's do it. And man, he put the whole thing together. He called the guy. It was done. And he is a man on a mission, and he's got great leadership skills. He's got good instincts into this kind of music, the death metal stuff. And I realize, death metal is to today's young, heavy metal fan what thrash was back in the 80s when we were doing thrash. And so it's exciting to be, because thrash melds well with it, but it's not the same style. But it's cool to kind of be reinvented into a new, very hip current style of music. And so we continued writing. And then when I came home from Europe, we were in Germany, south of Frankfurt, a little town called Seeheim up in the hills. Producer Christian Cole, who does like Powerwolf and Aborted, a lot of these kind of, those type of bands. He came on board to finish the record, produce it. He's going to mix it here shortly. And we signed a deal with Napalm, and, on it goes. So, it's really cool. So between Ellefson-Soto, which is kind of like a good straight up power metal, mainstream metal, this certainly being European death metal. And it's cool to be in Europe making a record with European guys who don't have the influence we had, or, they didn't have, Kiss FM and San Antonio or KNAC, and they didn't do the radio rock thing. They don't, they just think about the whole thing so different. They've grown up with the integrity of the festivals. Their influences come from deeper roots, real religious hardships, between, and in their world, real political hardships.
Yes.
And you realize some of their political hardships is with the country next door, which would be like me being in Arizona having a war with New Mexico. You know what I mean? Like, that's how close they're, that border is, where shit's going down. And so we take it for granted. The United States is this big land, and we all get along, we move around. And so there's so much history there that I love it. And that definitely comes into the music. You hear it through the music. And so it's fun to adapt kind of leave America behind, and go, all right, I'm going to really try to sort of become a native in a foreign land for the weeks and days that I'm there working on this stuff with them. So it's a cool experience.
Yes. Stylistically fit what you bring to the table, what you feel like the material needs, but still be David Ellefson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got to say that I think In the Halls of the Hanging Serpent is one of the most metal titles I've ever heard. I read that on the page and I thought, oh my God, I don't think I've read anything heavier sounding than that. That is just rad. That sounds really
thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah. And it's heartfelt, man. And you're right. It's one of these moments where, and these guys are real dudes. I mean, these are, Entombed, Decapitated. I mean, these are the real guys in that world. And same with Christian, the producer. I mean, he, was able to take great melodic sensibilities. I'm singing lead on the record. Guilherme is the singer, but it's interesting because, being Brazilian, and it really hits me because it's just like Max Cavalera. The Brazilian Portuguese, which Guilherme grew up speaking, that translates so well into that death metal voice.
I agree.
I mean, there's something about how they roll the vowels and the words that it comes across with a menace that other languages don't translate, like their other tongue, I should say, whatever that is, that embouchure of your mouth of how you pronounce those words. It's super freaking cool, man.
Yeah, I think that it's the way that when they speak or sing English, it's the jaw, it's the vowel shape because of their first language that comes through that makes it fucking metal.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I really, again, having worked with Max on a couple Soulfly records and touring with him and, being there, and then now with Guilherme, I'm like, fuck, dude, it's familiar because of the Max thing.
Yeah.
So it's comfortable, but obviously Guilherme, he's again, growing up with Dave, he had good instincts with Megadeth, and I always trusted and referred to his instincts on what their kind of right or wrong move was to make. And, his instincts were usually pretty right, and so the same thing with this group is I trust him, when he's got a vision of something, and we all contribute, we all collaborate. I got a few, things I brought in that they really liked. So it's nice that it's a group record for sure, but I defer to him as kind of the leader de facto. Cause again, the guy that has the instinct, I always go with that guy, and you've been that guy in your bands,
Are we going to get any tours out of Dieth or Ellefson-Soto?
Dieth for sure. The record, we're probably looking at June next year, 23. So we just have an agent that came on board. We've got dates already starting to come on the books. So yeah, for sure. And that'll be Europe, probably South America. America's hard, man. I mean, again, we're doing this Kings of Thrash thing this next week, and everything you do, you start from scratch. You know what I mean? So, we're doing West Coast dates, which are tough because the distances, you have to be on a bus or something. So, I guess if you live in New Jersey, you can probably play like 15 shows in about a car drive, an hour away, right?
Yeah. Well, it's like Texas. You could stay on tour in Texas for a week.
Yeah, right. Totally. No, 100%.
Houston, Dallas, Corpus Christi, Austin, El Paso's fucking far, but
that's a 2-day drive. Yeah.
It's
right.
another time zone.
every day you're on the road, you're spending money, and you're trying to earn money and stuff. So there's all that stuff that comes in. But I think stylistically, musically, this connects so well over there. Again, you don't have to go, well, it's the single for radio. You don't have to do any of that shit, man. It's fucking heavy metal. It's hard and heavy, and so it's just great to do that. Ellefson-Soto, we actually launched. Jeff was playing a show in Armenia for with Sons of Apollo, and as I understand, it was like a Stephen Hawking's, like a smart people convention that they gave Brian May an award for. It was
that's right. That's right.
Is a smart people
right, like smart people like Brian May, and so I said, dude, I got to come over anyway. Work on the Dieth record. I said, just give us 1 week where we can get together. We'll use my Italian band since they're the band on the record. They'll have it all dialed up. Andy's the musical director. We'll plug and play. I'm telling you, it'll be great. We're going to get in station wagons and drive around Italy, and we'll play a couple of shows. So we ended up playing Turin, Milan, and Rome. Fired it off just to give it a look. And by the nature of the songs on that record, again, the record wasn't even out yet. People had heard a couple of the singles, the video singles and stuff. But, so you're kind of going, oh, geez, we're going to play new material these guys haven't heard, plus some covers. But, it's the kind of record that the songs are, in my opinion, I think very listenable, very hooky, that if you've never heard them, you're going to like them. Like, you're going to track with it. You're going to kind of get, and then that's exactly what happened. And I remember the first show when I saw the guy with the Lamb of God shirt, by the end of the night, he's going, please do not let this be a project. Let it be your new band. I love it so much. I'm like, okay, we won the Lamb of God guy over. We're good here, so. So that was our tour so far. Jeff comes home now. He gets off into Trans-Siberian world here, Trans-Siberian Orchestra. So he's got stuff going on. So that's one of the things with this is just finding these windows where, you can go do stuff with them.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah. And the Lucid, tell me about that.
Oh, yes.
So the Lucid is just the quirkiest, funnest story.
Awesome.
Again, probably around the time of No Cover, maybe it was right after. Well, yeah, right around the same time. So Drew Fortier, who had been in Bang Tango for, who had been in Bang Tango, did a documentary for him, found out how fucked up the band was, and then joined the band, right? So I always tease him. It's like, geez, good move, dude.
Yeah.
But he's a wonderful guy, sweetheart of a man, has become a dear friend to me. And unbeknownst to me, a fantastic guitar player. He said, hey, man, again, it's COVID. It's 2020. We're all sitting around not doing anything. And my chops were up really good. I was, again, we're working on No Cover. He says, you want to play on a song? Me and Mike Heller, who was in Fear Factor, is in Fear Factor, I guess, also is in Raven.
I just saw him with Raven. Just saw him with Raven a week ago.
Yeah, so right? Yep, they're doing a run right now. Mm-hmm. Great drummer, great producer, and so I sent a track over, and it was the song that became Hair, which is one of the singles on the LP that we did. And I kind of demoed bass up to. He said, "Want to play more?" And he's again, kind of like I did, but Jeff Scott Soto. He sent me like 13 tracks, So I said, look, why don't I get over to California to Mike's place? Let's sit down in the room, play bass. Because I realized this needed to be an in the room kind of thing. So Vinny, Drew hits Vin. We're kind of going, God, who's going to sing on it? So Drew, just the lovable little character that he is, he just by chance, he goes, man, what about Vinny from Sponge? They kind of who in my ultimate, like, sky is the limit, ultimate choice to sing Vinny from Sponge. So he texts him on, I don't know, Facebook or something. Hey man, got his band. There's who's in it. Would you want to be part of it? And as Vinny tells the story, he goes, I see the message and I'm just getting ready to respond, I guess. And then Drew goes, oh, never mind. You probably wouldn't be interested. Like kind of like thinks twice, like second guesses himself. Like, oh my God, what did I do? I just fucking asked Vinny to be in my band. And so Vinny says, he goes, well, fuck, now you got my curiosity. What is this? It's like, it's like in sales, you do the takeaway. Nah, can't have it. Wait, now I want it, Yeah. So Vinny's I don't know if you know him, but he is a fucking rock and roll guy, man. He is just so freaking cool, man. That guy just oozes cool. And so he flew out to California, sight unseen from Detroit, So the four of us are hanging, Drew's there, the four of us are hanging out, I'm playing bass. I played bass on the 10 songs in like 2 days. It was a lot of work because we're sitting there writing parts, and Mike was a great producer. It was fun to be produced by him, and it was just so cool. And there it was. And we did photos. You know how it is. You're in the room. Let's get the photos. Let's get some video. Let's get all the content while we're here. And then everybody goes home. And that's how it started. And honestly, the record was done. Lesse, who's just kind of south of Hamburg, Germany, he mixed it for us. And we was just kind of sitting in the can. I mean, again, I kind of thought, now it's 2021. So we kind of set our sights to go, how about October 2021? Time I thought I'd be doing a Megadeth tour. And of course that all goes away. But so we're sitting going, well, may as well keep the release date going. Things were kind of starting to open up in the world. And in a lot of ways, it was sort of for sure, it was my first post Megadeth presentation. And I think because stylistically, it wasn't thrash metal. It wasn't trying to, sort of be Megadeth Part 2 or any of that kind of stuff. It was so fresh and just such a cool collab. What is a Bang Tango, Fear Factory, Megadeth, Sponge Guys? What does that sound like? Exactly. And it was just so new and just this breath of fresh air that, man, the press celebrated it. They loved it. Obviously, they were happy to hear me doing something new so quickly. And in a lot of ways, really kind of reset my life and my career, and I think by doing it as something so different than what I've been doing in Megadeth, it sort of just, the downbeat is, hey, David Ellefson's, kind of the rebirth, he's his own guy now. He can do whatever he wants. He can go wherever he wants. He can work with whoever he wants. And that's why, again, between this and Kings of Thrash and all these things, it's kind of like, go back and play music because you enjoy doing it with your friends who you like, and just get back to that whole ideal of what we thought being in a band was like. I actually get to do that now. I have been almost 58. I actually get to be the guy that I always thought being in a band at age 12 was going to be. Now I'm actually finally doing it.
How would you describe it? Because I mean, you nailed it just a minute ago. You got a Fear Factory, a Megadeth, a Sponge, and a Bang Tango. What does that add up to?
Well, I guess if you had to do a genre, I mean, it's probably alt metal. I don't know, and I say only alt because it has clean, jangly guitars at times, or Vinny. Sponge is just one of these cool bands. They've always been in the mix. Everybody, I mean, Howard Stern loved Sponge. Like when he had the Goo Goo Dolls on his show, they played the Sponge song, right? They played Cloud, So, everybody, they're like, Sponge is kind of like Cheap Trick. Like everybody loves Sponge, whether you're a chick, a rocker dude, whatever, it's a metal guy. So they just kind of fall in this cool area, so. Yeah. And we actually have an EP that we worked on earlier this year. Drew, unfortunately, he ended up having a cancer scare, which fortunately turned out to be easily resolved, done. He's clean bill of health. He's good. So we had some dates in May that we had to let go of. But right before that, we'd been working hard behind the scenes. We've been shooting videos that we put out. And we're actually cut a new EP that we'll put out probably before the end of the year. We'll start putting some tracks out from that.
Nice.
Well, on that note, hey, thanks for hanging with us, man.
Yeah, man. I totally appreciate it.
I appreciate you reaching out, and Dave, it's great to chat. And,
likewise.
See your fucked up killing is my business record.
Had it since 85. It's not going anywhere, man.
It's the best prop yet. It's awesome.
I'll take a fucked up killing is my business record any day. I don't know. Yeah. Come one, come all. Prestige or fuck.
I'm just honored that I got to share that story with the man himself. So
great,
thanks for joining us, Dave. I know you're you've got a busy day ahead of you, and we don't want to keep you any longer. You've been gracious enough to give us an hour plus. So thank you so much. Continued success with everything you do. Dude, you're a founding father of the Big Four, so that rules. Thank you very much for all your music with Megadeth and everything else you continue to do. We'll look out for Dieth and Ellefson-Soto and the Lucid and anything else you may put out here in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Cool. On behalf of my co-host, Jason McMaster, I'm Metal Dave Glessner, along with our very special guest today, David Ellefson, on the Talk Louder podcast.
Awesome, man. Good to see you, dude. See ya. Bye.
Thanks, John. See you later. Well, I just had to do that for a moment because
that was good.
Seeing JB and then got Dave coming in. I'm like, what? I'm gonna be the Wizard of Oz. I'm gonna be the guy behind the curtain for a second and throw these guys in the room just real quick.